All right, what is up, everybody? Will here with Schedule Fly, and this is another episode, almost this episode, I think, at this point, of Restaurant Owners Uncorked, brought to you by us here at Schedule Fly. Simple, web-based restaurant employee scheduling software backed by legendary customer service and at a low price point. We've actually never raised our prices since 2007, believe it or not. So if you are on pencil and paper or Excel and you need a easy solution to that headache of dealing with all the communication issues that come along with that, we got you squared away. 30-day free trial at schedulefly.com. Call my personal cell phone number. It's on 3 pages on our public-facing website. So I'm easy to reach, happy to talk. And also, if you are on one of these other softwares that's backed by venture capital or private equity and the price keeps going up and the customer service keeps going down, we got you covered. We have great software, great service, low price point, and we take incredible care of the people that we serve. So check us out, schedulefly.com. All right, now, this is a cool opportunity to talk to Simon Harris, who has used Schedulefly, used it for a while, and is freelancing now and doing some other work. But Simon, you wrote an article that we'll get into that was on LinkedIn that I just stopped and I was like, this is like the most powerful piece of content I've read about hospitality in a long time. So I want to get into that, but just let's start with you just introducing yourself, where you are and what you're doing right now.
Well, thank you, Will. Yeah, my name is Simon Harris. 20 plus years vet of the hospitality industry. Grew up in Greece. Lived in. I'm a Brit. I started off my career in the UK and moved over to the US about 15 years ago, and have subsequently been working. I've worked in so many different sort of parts of hospitality, from pubs and luxury retail, wine trade, and more latterly in luxury 5-star resorts and ranches. So yeah, run the gamut.
All right, you're a Brit. You grew up in Greece.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's wind back a little bit. I want to find out. That's fascinating. Tell me the backstory here.
Yeah, so as a little boy, my parents, there were 4 of us, my brother and myself and my parents, and my father got an opportunity to move with his company out to Greece to run that whole part of the business. And as a family, we're sort of up for anything. So he said, "Yep, let's go and do it. Let's jump on and see what happens." And so we ended up by living there. My parents actually lived there for 20 plus years, but I grew up there. I went to school there for a little bit, and then went to boarding school in England, and then back every vacation and what have you. But I mean, for me, that was the beginning of where I found my sort of hospitality legs. That was where I engaged with hospitality for the first time. It's the sort of spiritual home of why I'm still on this journey, 27 years later.
That's fascinating. So, okay. So how long have you been in the States?
So coming up for 15 years now.
Why'd you come here?
So again, I guess, we're not shy of just seeing opportunities and doing something different.
Yeah, man.
My wife was actually born in the States. She's lived all over the world. She's lived in Japan, Mexico, Switzerland, the UK, all over the place. Traveled as a family. So between us, we're sort of, we're not shy of upping sticks and going off and doing something else. And her parents ended up by moving here. We had the birth of our first child. Albert was 18 months, and my parents were in Greece still. Hers were over here. So we thought, let's get closer to one set of grandparents so we can form a sort of strong family unit. And so we literally packed a few bags, had no plan, left a great life behind in London, but decided, this is what we were going to do. So here we are.
15 years. So 2010. Okay. So you left London in 2010. How long were you over in London?
In London for 11 years, something like that.
Okay. I was there for a semester in college. It would have been the fall of 94. And I fell in love with London. I mean, I know it's changed a lot. I think we're going there this summer as a family, but I loved everything about London. Again, as a student, fortunate enough to live on Great Russell Street, right down the, road from the British Museum. I was with a program through Florida State University, and you could walk everywhere, or if you couldn't walk, you take the tube. And I mean, people were so freaking nice, and just like, I really loved London. I don't know what London's like now.
It's an incredible city. I mean, it's a city, so it has, it has its problems, its challenges. But from a hospitality side of things, I mean, it's always been pretty strong on the hotel front and things like that. And then the culinary side of things, since I would say probably when you were there was the beginning of the real resurgence, or the beginning of something quite incredible with the food scene in London, and more generally across the UK, but really focused on London. And it's just the most amazing place for food. It is extraordinary, honestly. The most incredibly talented, because it's so multicultural. You've got every type of cuisine under the sun, and very well represented. And it's a wonderful place to go. When I fly back, I spend the first couple of weeks before the flight just figuring out, okay, where we're going for lunch and for
Really?
dinner.
That's
And
all.
yeah, trying to pack them in. It's never a cheap journey, but it's always worthwhile. But
Well, in the fall of 94, as a poor college student, I was eating, I do remember a place called Wagamama's that we would go to.
yeah.
And then most of it was like, we had like a flat there, and it was like ramen noodles or whatever. And then we would of course, Americans, like, we would go, oh, look, Burger King's around the corner. Let's go to Burger King. And then we would complain that the meat tasted different. Like, it's just, but I look forward to going back with my family this summer and actually being able to enjoy, hopefully be able to afford to enjoy some of the nice culinary scene you're talking about. And and most important to me, and this is one of the things I really want to talk to you about, is the hospitality piece of this. I think for a long time, things just ebb and flow. And like, for a long time, we celebrated chefs, which we should. And there's a lot of great chefs doing great work, but cultural shifts, technological shifts, and so on, and things that have happened, for me, like, when we go to a place, I mean, you got to get the food right. Like, it's got to be good and all that. But like, what's more important to me, to my family, and what's more memorable and what brings us back is the experience. And a big part of that is just the people. It's being made to feel welcome. And I mean that on a authentic level, not a scripted, this person is clearly like resuscitating a dialogue that's been learned and is rote and is trained, but like really somebody who's present and intentional, who gets this experience. If we make it great and we make it memorable, and we make these people feel welcome and validated, which is like a universal human need, is to feel important and to feel validated, then they're going to come back. And like that formula has always worked, and it always will work. I mean, I'm an owner of a technology company, but I got to tell you right now, strip all the technology you want out of a restaurant, and if you've got great people, you will find a way to make people come back. At least that's my opinion. But you wrote this awesome piece. I'd like you to summarize what you wrote and why you wrote it recently on LinkedIn. That is why we reconnected.
Yeah, so I've had some opportunity recently to really galvanize, I guess, a lot of what I genuinely truly feel about hospitality, why I'm in it, and put down on paper and think about what it is that where we are now, what it is about hospitality, what's so magical about it, and look at, to look back and see what we're kind of maybe missing in our journey as it stands, what's not there that used to be. And so the piece that I wrote that got a lot of traction was, it could be, some people criticized it somewhat for being a little nostalgic. And I understand that there was a sort of a little nostalgia aspect to it, but it was important. I think it's important to whenever you're moving forward, to always turn around and look back occasionally, just to see where you've come. And if you're still on the right path, whether you've veered off track a little bit. And so I really wrote this piece to sort of to emphasize what I believe is the most important part of what hospitality is. And you've mentioned it already. And in fact, you said a word maybe 3 or 4 times while you were talking, and it's about how you make people feel. And that is essentially what hospitality is. It's the desire to make people feel something pretty special, a connection, to have a real connection with somebody. It doesn't matter how fleeting it is. And I think creating these experiences in the restaurant sort of forum scenario, you have millions of different ways to connect, but ultimately you really, a great experience for the guest and for the team members, right? For the people in hospitality is when there's a real connection that happens. And so over the years, I've noticed, I've experienced it myself because of the way that the business changes. The emphasis becomes less on the front of house. It is very much on the food. The sort of, as we mentioned, the sort of celebrity of chef makes great TV, right? It's great for marketing, great for, all of those sort of things. It's had its setbacks. It's had problems from in the kitchen, right? There are a lot of people that don't want to go to culinary school. They just want to become a celebrity chef. They want to get the fame. They're not willing to put in the miles, right? To really to understand what it is that it takes to get to where they need to get to, and not everyone's going to have that break. But veering off a little bit, but that's been the sort of the big focus. Quite often a question will be, who's the chef of this place that's opening up? It's like, okay, well, it's important to know who the chef is. It's important to know what the food is like, and as you mentioned, the food is a critical part of it, as is the beverage program. But there's been a shift from the focus away from the front of house and of actually how restaurants are run and how the service is orchestrated and how the whole thing is owned by the maitre d' historically, or by even these days by a food and beverage a floor manager. You don't have to be a maitre d' to do this. But what the conversation that I wanted to start was, and really to have people think again as operators, is where does the importance lie? I appreciate that it's expensive to run restaurants, right? But the costs that are being cut and have been cut, typically one of those things has been that front of house element, right? You try and roll in 4 or 5 roles into one. So the food and beverage manager or the GM or whoever it is becomes, is responsible for all of everything, right? Every part of it. And suddenly you start to see that what might be a sort of a 10% in the office after the shift is finished of the time of total time spent is now creeping into 30, 40, 50% of the time. So you get this disparity where you have absentee leaders on the floor, you have a lack of direction, and you have a lack of orchestration. And when there's no QB, when there's no quarterback on the floor, it becomes a little bit aimless, and it loses its flow, its cohesiveness, and ultimately its magic. So really, that was sort of the essence of what I wrote, and what can we do about that? What do we need to focus back on?
It's funny. I was so happy because literally 3 minutes before we started our call, I got a text. Because every time somebody signs up for a schedule fly trial, I get this text with like the info from the trial form. And this place up in New York, it has like the schedule names, like they list their schedule names. Mm. Host, maitre d', bartender. So I was like, oh, maitre d', like what perfect timing. Like that's so great because your article was about the maitre d'. And I mean, I'm sure some people may have given it critique, but your point was really important. And look, I think that at a high level, Simon, I think a lot about this stuff. Like, okay, I'll look at my kids, for instance. They are 21, 18, 15. They were the guinea pigs for these screens, right? Like
that's right.
10 years ago, my daughter was 11, 12, whatever, these iPhones. And then you're like, do we give our kid like what? Like we didn't know really what was going to happen. And now we all know, all of us know that they're highly addictive, that they can be very problematic, that generation has grown up on screens. They don't even know how to talk on a phone, even though it's called the iPhone. They have a hard time answering the phone. Like my daughter was a hostess at a restaurant, and like she was like terrified of answering the phone because it's like never talked on the phone. So I think about that, but I also think about the fact that they recognize it to the point that, I mean, my kids are like buying records, like vinyl,
Vinyl. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
they're buying books, like,
yeah.
so there's, yes, your post was nostalgic, but good because we kind of want to we're humans and we don't want to just go. It's funny how like you went from vinyl to cassette to CD to everything, and now these kids who were born in the 21st century are like,
Mhm.
I want the record and a record player and I want an actual book. And I don't, they just know intuitively. They're like, the screen is not, where I want to be, even though I'm drawn to it all the time. But they actually harken back, and my kids will all say, like, I wish I were born in the 80s, like I wish.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I hear this a lot now. 80s and 90s. There's this sort of fascination with that time, and that's what you and I grew up in that era, and I count myself as being pretty lucky,
Absolutely.
and and to your point, this again, it's looking back, it's looking back to see what we've missed, right? So we've gone from vinyl to Spotify, but no one owns their own record collection anymore. No one listens to the entire album to fully understand the body of work, right? You just don't do that. And so you have to look back to go, okay, well, what is it that we no longer have that in this pursuit of sort of progress or whatever it is, what is it that we're now missing? Well, we're missing the rawness of vinyl and the the tactileness of that, or the CD case with the 27-page long thing inside of it. You'd sit there and read read it with all the lyrics. All of that stuff is missing now, and it's again. You said the book. Reading a book, holding a book in your hand, and turning over the corners of the pages. It's not just nostalgia. It's like these are tactile. These are things that are sort of innate to us as humans, right? And they engage our senses in a very, very different way.
Mhm.
And to your point, there's a whole generation now that is growing up without any of that. And they're looking for it. They're searching for it. And this is exactly what we need to really focus on bringing back within the hospitality arena, right? Within service, the experience. People want that connection. They want to be wrapped up in something that feels really genuine, authentic. You mentioned that too, and I totally agree with you. There's nothing worse than going into a restaurant and there's a script that just gets sort of vomited out of a server's mouth before they've even they don't really you're a table number. They probably don't even know your name on the table. You're not a person, you're a table number, which is tallying up to become some sort of tip at the end, right? Some gratuity at the end. And
Yeah.
so they need to go run through the process and hit the systems and do everything they need to do to be as efficient as possible to get you in and out and serviced and then move on. There's a place for that, sure. Not every meal has to be, quite so involved. But there's also an art to having a fast meal or a casual meal or something like that, but still have those little touches, those human connections, right? You get that typically in mom and pop places, in places that are owned and run by someone who genuinely cares. It might be a greasy spoon, right? We call them greasy spoons in the UK, but it's a place where you'll go for your full English breakfast and a hot
Yeah.
mug of stewed tea in the morning, right? You've probably been to one. These places are run by mum and dads and pops, right? Mums and dads. And yeah, of course, they rely on volume. They rely on getting people in and out, but it doesn't mean that the engagement isn't there. The little jokes, the laughter, the sort of the understanding of what the guest needs, the intuition, it's built in the service.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily talking about bringing maitre d's into every sort of style of dining. It's more looking at what that maitre d exemplifies and what is now missing across the board from your fast casual place all the way into a restaurant, that is newly opened with a great chef and all the rest of it, and a lot of social media buzz behind it, but leaves you absolutely cold, and you feel, okay, where's the value? What have uh,
Yeah.
I had no connection with this. It didn't
Yep.
make me feel anything.
Yep. Yeah.
I think this is the crux of the conversation, really, and my point.
That dude, it's you nailed it because you can have a great celebrated look, PR, social media, all this stuff. But I remember years ago, it's probably been 10 years ago. We used to make these really cool films about some of our customers that were doing like really cool things. And we went up to New York and we met with the guys at the meatball shop. And they were like like these guys were childhood friends, Michael Chernoff and Daniel Holzman. They were on American Express commercials. They had like tons of PR and they were talking about how important PR is. It was really interesting to follow them because they wound up being on like a TV show a couple years after that. And it was following their like they had gotten to like 6 locations and then the question was like, do we blow this thing up or do we sell the business? And it was like they were kind of like butting heads a little bit on this
Mm.
show. And but what they realized, I talked to one of the guys and he's like, look, here's the thing. PR and all this buzz, it'll get people in your door, but it'll get them in there once, right? The question is like, you can't be successful just getting tons of people to come in once, a smaller number of people to come in over and over and over and over.
Yep.
And that's what, that's what they were missing. Like that was the
Hmm.
gap. And they struggled with like the operations of like, let's slow down and replicate, our success. And I remember like, it was an interesting thing to follow. And now they're both out of it. I think they sold it. They're doing different stuff, but I always felt like that was a really important lesson is, there's a lot of energy on, you know, opening and social media and creating buzz and all that. But there's a operator, guy named Keith Paul. He's with the Good Egg Dining Group in, Oklahoma City. And he is, gosh, I've known Keith for 15 years now. And he told me something years ago on this podcast, one of our first episodes. He said, I just focused on all I care about is what's happening inside our four walls. Like when
Yeah.
somebody comes in, we can control that. Like, cause he was talking about how like at the time he like, didn't really spend on advertising. All he's like, once somebody's inside our four walls, now we own that experience and we can always control that. And if you stay locked in and focused on that, good things will happen.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, if I think of some of my favorite restaurants, even to this day in London, some down here in Southern California, they don't even have social media presence. They don't even have anything beyond, the basics.
Yeah.
Because they don't need it. That's not where their attention is. Their attention is it's more of the build it and they will come philosophy. Just to that gentleman's point, focus on what you are doing inside. Focus on that and make it the very best. And the word will get around. People will come and they'll want to invite. They will love it. They will become part of your community. They'll want to invite people to come along because they want to show them, look how this place is. Look, and of course, this is sort of, look how they treat me, local as part of the community. And you build that way. And that's what you want. You want the loyalty. Of course, you want people, customers to come in every so often. You want to continue to do that, but you want to have a strong retention of regular business. And it's the same for staff too, right? You want to have some new blood coming in, but you want to have strong retention of people that have been there for a while, so they can build that legacy, that they continue to convey that message, this familiarity with the guest and the staff members, right? They become part of that community. So I mean, that's a different. They all lead into different things, and I've written a piece about culture recently as well, because I believe that that's a huge part of it. You can't. You have to have a very strong culture within your business in order to create a type of place that is really exudes hospitality, where the hospitality just sort of flows out of people. You want it. People that are in the business for the right reasons, if you've hired for the heart, if you've got the right people in there that are working it, that are drawn to hospitality for something that maybe they can't even put their finger on, they just really like the idea of it. you want to kind of pull that out of them. You really want to be able to help that sort of work in your favor, and that helps create that sort of energy and that warmth and that presence for the guests, right? That's what you want to do. So the cultural side of it is really, really important, and then the focus, as we mentioned, that the investment in it. I mean, people are willing to spend millions of dollars on opening a new restaurant, but not spend a dime on training or continual training, or
Yeah.
focus on the areas, or pay the proper money for the right people who are going to be absolutely pivotal in their businesses, you know. And expansion is a tough thing for sure, but you have to have people who, if you're going to expand, you're not going to be there anymore. Even more important to have that sort of maitre d' figure, right? In that person that takes ownership of the restaurant and carries on that energy and makes it feel really good. And then you want to incentivize them to stay with you and to be part of a larger community as you grow, right? It's really important to be able to do that. Otherwise, again, when you have turnover and a lot of people coming and going, they don't have skin in the game. They don't feel part of something quite so much. And then the guests are like, sorry, and you must be new here. And you've got to teach them your likes and your dislikes again and all the rest of it. And that's the difference between it's you're making the guest do the work in that respect, whereas a true front of house that has been there for a while, that knows what they're doing and genuinely cares, they're taking all the guesswork and all the work out of it from the guest perspective, right? You come in here, if you're local and you go and you patronize somewhere because you love it all the time, they're going to know where you like to sit. They're going to know whether you like to eat quickly or slowly, or get your order in fast and then take time at the table. They're going to know what your favorite drink is, how you like your fries cooked, all of whatever it is, right? They're going to know those things. And when those things start to happen to you intentionally as a guest, where else would you want to go? I mean, it's just the most extraordinary thing. So, and when that's done well, it's done because the people that are doing it, the people that are working in hospitality, do it because they want to. They're doing it not because they're trying to get. They're not there metaphorically with a handout to try and get a bigger tip. And I think this is something that I hear, and it's disappointing at times. Yes, money is the motivator for a lot of people. I understand that. That's absolutely right. But you're never going to build a genuine experience if money is the primary motivator for as a server, whatever, to providing hospitality. True hospitality expects absolutely nothing in return, and that you can feel. You can genuinely feel that when it is, if it's done in that way, it becomes something quite extraordinary.
God, man, you've touched on so many things I want to dive into. Okay. One of the challenges I think we have now is you have particularly here in the States, at least, you've got a generation who has grown up with how we just have such a celebrity culture. We have a social culture. We have a meme. It's just it's tough because we're not, I don't think, raising people enough to be selfless. We're raising people to be selfish and be the center of things. And so it gets harder to, like, all the people you're talking about, the kind of people you need, it's harder now to find those people that are in it for something bigger than just the money and the paycheck. Tell me about that and what you're seeing out there as you talk to operators. And I think that we lost a lot of people during COVID. The industry have not come back. There's the gig economy that's drawing people in. There's OnlyFans for the people that only want money. So there's just, it seems like the talent pool is a little bit smaller. And I also think there's a couple of things that have been on my mind about this, Simon. I think there's that challenge. There's a challenge of money was free for a decade. And what that meant was there's possibly an oversaturation of restaurants. It was very easy to expand and grow.
Absolutely.
And the third leg of that stool, and again, I'm saying this as somebody who is part of this, is I think there's just too much technology now. There's too much restaurant technology. It was too easy to go get venture capital. I mean, I've had restaurant owners tell me straight up, 90% of the restaurant tech people that call on them are coming from a company that the founder never worked in restaurants, the investors never worked in restaurants. They're all smart people who know what's best for restaurants. And so they built this tech and said, you should use this because it'll make you run better. But it's, this is all tech centric, and sure, tech has a place, but it has to be a small place, I think, and with as little tech as possible. Because when you lean so much into tech, there's this saying, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I mean, like we've kind of taken that philosophy at Sketch. Just because we can write code and add more tools and all this stuff doesn't mean we should. Like for me, it's like the less tech, enough to manage things and get by where you're not like a dinosaur and you like still have a cash register and not a point of sale. But I mean, I'm a guy who carries a flip phone still, so I kind of live it and breathe it. But I think there's just like confluence of these things that are happening in hospitality right now that do make it a little bit more challenging to find people to create that experience. But I do think that that need and that desire that we all have as humans won't go away. So I do think it's going to be a challenging couple of years. There'll probably we're seeing more restaurants close, out of our customer base than we have. But I think that some of the tech will also get merged in or go away. And I think that this generation that's growing up now is, my kids being a part of it, it is looking more for that. Like if you can weave in that nostalgia along with some modernity and find that like,
You want to find that happy medium.
yeah,
So let's talk about the workforce as it stands. I mean, you're absolutely right. When during COVID, the Great Resignation was absolutely real.
yeah,
A lot of people who were sort of carrying the sort of baton for many years within hospitality just sort of said, "Okay, enough. I'm done. It's hard enough as it is, but now it's too hard. It's just if I have the opportunity to tap out, I'm going to do it." So a lot of people left. Interestingly enough, I think that a certain number under a certain age have decided to come back because they've just generally missed everything that hospitality has provided them, but perhaps under different requirements. I think that with that loss of some senior tenured people within the industry as a whole over that time, and with the need to employ people of a lot younger age. I mean, I remember at one point we couldn't find anyone. We literally couldn't find anyone. And we ended up by hiring a host. She was 16 years old. 16 years old, never, this first job. I mean, but it was literally, but what was incredible for me was that she was like, I'm here to learn. And it was kind of the low end of Gen Z, beginning of Gen Alpha almost, right? And who was like, I'm up for this. Like, I will throw myself at this. And it was really heartening, right? It was really, really great to see. The majority of it is hard. It is hard to find staff, and it's hard to find. You're up against a lot of people, a lot of different industries, and like you said, the gig economy and every industry working from home. You can't do that if you work in the restaurant industry. And so there are a lot of things that make it harder for the restaurant industry to be, hospitality in general, hotels as well, to be somewhere that is an attractive and appealing place to work. So two things we have to do. First of all, it's more important than ever to inject purpose into what we're doing, because to your point, it's a basic human need inside every one of us. There is a need for connection, for purpose. And I think now more than ever, generations that are developing need to find purpose. They're looking for they just don't know where they stand in the world. They don't know what they feel lost. So this is where hospitality can really step in. If you're part of something like that, it's creating that sense of community that is, and I don't, it's the reality, right? People aren't going to church anymore. It becoming far more secular or sort of non-religious society. There's no people don't, people don't, that sort of village mentality of that we grew up in, when if you run out, and again, it sounds very nostalgic, but it is how it was. You would go out and you play for the day. Your parents would kind of let you run feral for an entire day, right? But someone would be there to tell you, hey, knock it off. If you were someone you didn't even know, maybe, or some local, or someone in your community, if you were misbehaving, you would get a clip by somebody in that, because they take ownership of you as part of the community. Same thing, if you fell over and you busted your leg, you know that you could run to the nearest house, get someone to call, it would be taken care of. They would be able to call your folks, and before you know it, you'd be taken care of, right? And it's like that doesn't exist much anymore. It does in some areas, and that's wonderful where if it does, and you're part of that. But a lot of people, a lot of youngsters are not part of any of that anymore. So again, there's no sense of belonging. But that doesn't mean that the human heart and the human doesn't need that any less. So where can you find that? Well, ideally, you can find it in places of community that still exist, like restaurants, right? If you can grow those, if you can nurture that sense of community and purpose, working in a restaurant, it can give you something quite unique, and it's an instant payoff, right? You get immediately, yes, you have that instant feedback, but you can see in real time how you are affecting someone else positively.
Yep. Dude, I mean, I just think about, yeah, it's funny because we tell our kids, my wife and I, and they're like, why don't we get to do it? Like, why don't we have that now? And we're like, yeah, it's just, times have really changed. But here's what I think. Again, like kind of big picture, I go, okay. I think there's a really bright future for hospitality. I think particularly for independent hospitality, because a couple of things are going on. Number one, college is getting like just not affordable. Like the value proposition is hard to justify anymore. And there's actually the colleges call 2026 the year of the apocalypse, because in 2008, and again, this is just in the US here, but our birth rate dropped by 10% because of the housing crisis, which means that next year, you're going to have 10% fewer students applying. And there's a lot of colleges that are like, you wouldn't believe it. And these are ones that have been around forever that are like staring at a financial crisis, right? Because, tuition has gone up way past inflation forever, and it's compounded at a nonlinear rate, and it's just absurd. And I'm staring at this. Like, I got a kid that's out, goes to college out of state. I got another one's about to start instinct. Thank you, Lord. And then I got another going in a few years. But here's the thing. Now we're like, you got a lot of these kids that have been coming out for the last decade that have degrees in things that like mean nothing, and they have debt, and they have to service that debt because it never goes away. And they're like, man, I've been sold a bill of goods. Like, this is BS. And they don't like that. And I think more and more, I mean, like, I'm having this conversation with friends of mine, and we have been, it's like, wait a minute now. Is college the best thing for that kid? I have 3 kids, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think that you're going to see a lot more. You nailed it. They're looking for meaning and purpose. And meaning and purpose for a lot of people, not all, but it's not going and working in some cube, hunched over a laptop running spreadsheets, which quite frankly are going to be taken over by AI, whether you like it or not anyway. And meaning and purpose is not, oh, well, I have to go get a 6-figure job because I have to pay this stupid debt that I incurred to go to college. It's like, now I'm handcuffed, right? Well, meaning and purpose is more, I want to be a fireman, or I want to be a nurse, or I personally really believe that hospitality is in that same orbit of like almost like first responders. And the reason I say that is I look at what happened in North Carolina back in the fall. You may have heard about when that storm came through,
Yes. Yep.
flooded out our mountains. It was like biblical. It was
Yeah.
horrible. Still is. It's going to take years. I look at what happened with the LA wildfires, and like obviously you have your actual first responders, but who's
Yep.
always there providing food, shelter, raising money, donating time, donating food. Like it's restaurants, it's local independent restaurants, it's hotels opening their door. It's businesses where that community matters.
Yep.
It matters for their livelihood, but it matters because they live and work there, and that is their community, and those people that they are there to serve. And that is what genuine hospitality has always been, which is it's like we're going to open our doors and have you into our home and take good care of you. And they always step up. I mean,
That's right.
there's no prompting. There's no like, and it's not like for some, like, oh, if we step up now, we're going to make money out of this somehow. It's like, dude, we just got to help our community. And like, they're always there. And that's really meaningful. And when you start looking for like
Yeah.
things that give you purpose, that matters a lot. And I think that there's a huge, as you said, that people are looking for it. And I do think that that's a place that you'll find it. And I mean, I wrote this post years ago when my kids were younger. And I said, I want all of my kids to work in independent hospitality one day at some point. So far, I've managed it with two of them. I got a 15-year-old, and we'll get him in there too at some point, because you're going to learn. And I don't mean go work for Olive Garden. Like, no problem with Olive Garden, but like when you go work for an independent restaurant or brewery or a boutique hotel or whatever, you're gonna you're gonna work for somebody who's like, the owner, and that owner cares very much about that community, and you're gonna learn like what it's like to work for somebody who like this is their livelihood, and you're gonna learn so much about what it means to take care of people, and you're going to learn how to deal with stuff I mean, you go work in a restaurant, any restaurant, but particularly an independent one where like you are dialed in with the owner, you're going to learn to deal with like so many different things that are skill sets that will serve you well in any job you have one day. And I just think that I know it's a tough time right now, and there's a lot of turmoil in the economy, and there's all this stuff, but like this stuff over time works itself out of the system. And then I think there's like maybe a reset of coming back to, you know, that type of job as being a real meaningful and important job.
I think it is, and I think that we're seeing that because the sort of backlash, right? That you talked about the overuse of technology in the hospitality space. There's a pushback. There already is. People are like, I'm not comfortable with how far we're going in this direction, and if it starts to replace the human side of it, I'm not cool with that. So there is a somewhat of a sort of a future protecting aspect to hospitality, right? That the AI just simply won't be able to, or tech won't be able to replace what is essentially there, which is that need for human connection and that understanding of community and how to build it. I absolutely love what you just said about hospitality being sort of one of the, a first responding service. I think it's extraordinary, and you're absolutely right. And it makes me think of you talked about me growing up in Greece and why Greece is so important to me. And I get very emotional when I talk about that place, because it's just, for me, it's everything. It's a very magical spot. The people are everything. It's beautiful, obviously. You've got mountains, you've got the ocean, you've got the sights, the colors, the smells, everything is extraordinary. But the people are what make that part of the world so incredible. And what they have is their word for hospitality. It's something innate. It's something inside of them that is so deeply rooted in their culture. And they call it phylloxenia. And phylloxenia, loosely translated, means friend of strangers, a love of strangers. And that they embody that as people. And it speaks very much to what you're saying about just dropping everything to help when the proverbial hits the fan, right? That's what we do as true hospitality people, as true. And phylloxenia really embodies that. It's that love, that acceptance. I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. I am here to give myself to you with nothing in return. It bears out in every interaction you have. Of course, in the dining in the restaurants and the cafe neons and all these different places and tavernas in Greece, but in an interaction you'll have with a yaya on a bus, or with the fisherman, or the guy in the hardware store, whatever it is, right? It is this genuine want of connection and selflessness, wanting to help, and not what's in it for me. That was my inspiration for being in hospitality, because I saw deeply that resonated with me, and I knew that I was looking here. Well, how can I manifest that? How can I put that to good use as often as I can? Well, in the hospitality space, I mean, it's a no-brainer. So, yeah, I think. I think we are at a crossroads. There are a lot of restaurants that are shutting down. There are a lot of and again, there has become this sort of formulaic, systematic approach to venture capitalist investment in hotels and restaurants, and build them and create something, put in the formulas, put in the systems, get this margin, tighten this, do that. That has got nothing to do with hospitality. It's just turning it into it's bastardizing it. It's turning it into an industry that is just a sort of a churning in and out of stuff. You are just part of, as a guest, you are just a commodity that is being sort of traded in some way, and it is heartless, and it will ultimately fail. And particularly, we're walking into, we're stepping on the abyss right now as things are happening. We don't know what's going on sort of financially, economically. And if we're headed for a downturn, there's going to be some fallout. And I think that at times like this is where people look for that place for solace, right? That place where they need to come and they need to feel like everything's all right. I ran pubs in the early 2000s, and when things weren't going well financially, we couldn't have been busier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it wasn't because we had a cheap offer. We didn't at all, actually. Our offer was not cheap. But what we provided was a safe haven, a place of security. People felt psychologically safe there. They felt like it was okay. And when you're going about your day and you're battling the markets, or you're doing whatever you're doing and everything is just a nightmare, you can seek refuge in a restaurant, in a place that actually welcomes you and is like, it's like your parents coming home, right? And it's like, it's okay, everything's going to be all right. That's that metaphorical hug, that pat on the back, sort of lowering of your blood pressure, even if it's just for an hour and a half. And I think that this is where those places, those restaurants that provide that in the future, and particularly now, are the places that are going to do really well. Because that's where I'm going to be spending my money. I'm going to go to places like that, where I feel valued, where I feel like I'm part of something, that I can step out of the craziness of the world and move into something and feel good about myself again for a little bit. Restaurant, restaurateur, restoration. It's about restorative. It's about providing sustenance, and not just nutritional sustenance, but sustenance of the soul. I mean, I have a very romantic view of hospitality, but I shout it from the rooftops, and I'm not abashed. I don't care how people think I'm an old romantic or wherever it is when it comes to it. And this is truly why I'm in this game. And I believe that there is something that no other industry can provide. Really, no other industry can provide in the way that we provide it, if it's done right. And those places that provide that and put that first, that type of service and that passion first, are always going to have their seats full. They're going to have a line out of the door.
Amen, dude. Keep shouting it from the mountaintops. I'm right there with you. I believe it wholeheartedly. Everything, every bit of it. Okay, I want to respect your time, and I have a call here in 10 minutes, but I got a couple of other things I want to ask you about. The first thing I want to ask you before I forget is, what year is that Land Rover that's behind you?
It's a 1997 300 TDI.
Okay, cool. I love it, man. That thing is freaking sweet. All right. The other thing is, tell me about what you're doing now and where you're spending your time for your work, and then where people can find you. I mean, obviously, you've been putting some great stuff up on LinkedIn, but let's let's wrap it up with that.
Yeah, so I've like 27 years in the industry, right? And I've come to a point when I'm finding a voice, sort of independently of the places that I've worked, and I know what value I can provide. Yes, and restaurants, and I think that everything I've just spoken about is what I truly believe, and for me, I'm really on a mission to help inspire people, get the hospitality industry back on track, to help independents and businesses that feel that they need some support in that way, that maybe just can't see themselves through the weeds, and just can't understand where they're at. Focus on culture and building things from the ground up, foundational work to help teams get to a place where they can provide that type of hospitality that we've just been talking about. So I've been very lucky to work with Elizabeth Blau out of Las Vegas for the last half a year or so, and continue to work on projects with her. In the meantime, I'm developing my own consultancy, and will soon be bringing out some sort of a product list, list of services that will allow me to be able to help others, really.
Tell me about Elizabeth Blau. I mean, I know the name. I don't think I've met her, but tell me about Blau and Associates.
So Elizabeth is an extraordinary woman. She's been in the industry for 3 decades, based out of Vegas. The Blau team, they're consultants and operators, so they have their own restaurants. The Blau team manages operations for people too, and then consults as well on different things. And Elizabeth is one of the leading pioneers of hospitality in Las Vegas, and I would say in the States. She's an incredible force for good in the industry. Is a big supporter of women in the industry. She just actually had a conference, the first ever conference in Vegas, supporting women in the hospitality industry. And she's an extraordinary lady. And the Blau team they're expanding. They have projects globally now, in Saudi Arabia even, and Dubai and other places. So it's quite a big operation.
Uh, I would, if she's ever interested, probably too busy, but I'd love to have her on this podcast if she,
I'm sure she probably would. Yeah.
and then you're developing your own consultancy.
Yes. So exactly. So right now, it's interesting because I've been taking some real time to think, okay, what is it that I can provide? There's a lot of consultants out there. And as I've started to build my own brand on LinkedIn and really sort of develop my own voice, I've, connected with a lot of consultants, which is phenomenal. It's great that there are people out there and there are consultants that focus on systems and on profitability and on this and on that. And these are the things that I know inherently because of my, being an operator myself and food and beverage director, being being an operator for 27 years. I understand all of those metrics and those things, but for me, none of that really exists unless you have the sort of the cultural side of it and the actual purpose behind the hospitality. So for me, that's where I feel that's where my strengths lie, where my tools are that I can really service and help others.
I love the culture piece. I mean, that's something culture is so incredibly important. And you have groups like, do you know the Indigo Road Hospitality Group?
Mm.
Gosh, check them out. They're out of Charleston, but they've got oh gosh, 30 something restaurants now and 5 or 6 hotels. Steve Palmer started that. And, but they have a director of culture. Like you're starting to see director of culture in these big groups like that, because it is. I mean, it is so critical. And, so I love seeing that. And I love hearing you talk, Simon. I could talk to you all freaking day. I want to help like any way that we can help you. Introduce you to folks or through Schedulefly or whatever I can do. I would love for us to be a resource for you. So
Thank you. Yeah.
let's stay in touch, and you've got my cell, I've got yours. And I really appreciate the opportunity, man. It's such an inspiring conversation. It's just filled me with so much energy listening to you talk about this industry and what really is important. And yes, dude, though, I call them, I developed this term spread heads, which are like people that run their business on a spreadsheet. And, like in hospitality, I don't think that works. It doesn't endure. I mean, the number, you have to be profitable, the numbers matter, all that kind of stuff. But what you were talking about, what some of this money, that VC and private equity money that's come in, it often turns it in that direction. And that's why you see places that just become stale. And, is that going to work in the next 5 years with the changing economy? I wouldn't put my money on it.
I mean, but you see this at all levels, and even to the luxury hotel industry is exactly the same, right? You go from you're now just and you'll have CEOs that will say, we're not hospitality first. We're developers. We're a property company
Yeah.
primarily.
Yeah, that's right.
With hospitality. And it's like, but that's absolutely, that my heart just absolutely sinks when I hear that, because I'm thinking, again, it's just a trading of your commodity. It's weird. You wouldn't do that with other things, and it's just soul destroying to see that. And again, it's not there will be a correction, right? There are people are already saying in the luxury hospitality space, the places that are starting to do way better than the large 400-500 room key properties that are sort of part of a massive group are the smaller independents with 100, 150, 50 rooms, even less, that are dynamic, that have a sense of place, that feel like they're part of something, that you're not just you're not in Marrakesh and staying in a box. You're going to Marrakesh and staying in this incredible riad that's that is part of the scene, that makes you feel like you're immersed in the locality. Those are the sort of places that people are looking for, right? They're looking for experience-led stays, and at the same hand, they're looking for experience-led dining experiences.
Yep.
Not through a gimmick, through just genuine experiences that make them feel restored and like, wow, okay, that meant something. That meant something.
Well, the pendulum went in one direction. I think it's coming back, and this stuff happens. But well, look, thank you so much for your time, and I really appreciate you. I enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for using Schedulefly for all those years, and just let's stay in touch, man. And
yeah, for sure.
simpatico, brother. So I love the way you think, and I think it's important, and I'm really thankful to have the opportunity to share the conversation.
And thanks for inviting me on, Will. I really appreciate it. It's again, I've always felt the warmth from you and from Schedulefly. It's part of the community, the wider community.
Yeah,
And what
man.
you do is really, really important, and you add value to what we do, and that you should be very proud of that.
We're happy to do. We're grateful to have to be able to participate from the sidelines in this industry. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
All right, man.
matey.
Have a good one, my brother. I'll talk to you
Okay,
again soon. All right. See you.
okay, take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.